What's happening, everybody? On today's show, we are putting a cap on some of the storylines from SEC Week 5 as we start to look ahead to Week 6 with some monster matchups this week, including Bama heading to Texas A&M and Kentucky at Georgia. We'll also get to the SEC Players of the Week. And does Tim Brando hate Georgia? We'll discuss. A Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Download the Game Time app. Go create an account. Use our promo code Locked On College. Get $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, let's jump into a plan to discuss. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start over at Tennessee as a little bit of an ugly injury against South Carolina Saturday night. Wide receiver Bru McCoy. You figured he was going to miss some significant time, but the Vol wide receiver announcing he underwent successful surgery on Sunday for a fracture dislocation of his right ankle. Tennessee football put out a statement, said, Bru and his family appreciate all your prayers and support. He's displayed unwavering toughness, character, and leadership as a Vol. It's been a big part of that Tennessee offense the last couple seasons. His first year with the Vols, after transferring over, he had over 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, made a big play in that Alabama game. And before his injury, McCoy had 217 yards and a touchdown this season. So, going to miss him, but they got other guys like Squirrel White and, look, tons of receivers there at Tennessee. They're very, very deep, but going to miss Bru McCoy. Josh Heupel was at the Knoxville Quarterback Club luncheon on Monday, and one of the questions he gets a ton is, why doesn't D. Williams see snaps on offense? Williams has been a reserve defensive back, but a star kick returner. Housed a punt against South Carolina this past week. They got called back for a block in the back, but he is a ridiculous playmaker. Josh Heupel telling the crowd, D is special. There's a lot of pieces that go into being able to play within our offense and the structure and the tempo of it, but he's a special playmaker. We got to continue to find ways to help him make a difference in the football game. So, short answer there, no. You won't see D. Williams on offense, but nonetheless, very fast guy, and one of those things that the message board folks at Tennessee are going to continue to bring up. All right, in other news over at Alabama, Nick Saban and the Tide. Big test heading to Texas A&M on Saturday. The Aggies, of course, lost a game earlier this season against Miami. Alabama lost a game earlier this season against Texas. And Nick Saban, talking on Monday, said, we are playing a really good team this week. I think they're playing as well as they've played all season long. They keep getting better and better. Of course, one thing Alabama struggled with Saturday was clean snaps. Saban said that is going to be a big focus of the team this weekend. He said, or this week in the prep, he said, big focus will be the importance of the snap, because this has been a pretty consistent issue where it makes it harder for the quarterback to be able to function. So going into a hostile environment at Kyle Field this weekend, and the Tide held one of the top offenses in the country, Ole Miss, just a couple weeks ago. It's just 10 points. Jimbo Fisher talking with the media, noting a bunch of different players in Alabama's defense have stepped up. Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell, Malachi Moore. Jimbo saying Monday, we play Alabama this week. Alabama's a very good football team. Defensively, they're outstanding. Start up front, Dallas Turner, Braswell, bringing off the edge. Had a pick 6 on a deflection against the screen. Secondary is really good. Offensively, just really, really dangerous team. So the Tide currently have the number 2 scoring defense in the SEC. And keep in mind, they've played offenses like Texas and Ole Miss. They sit at 4th in the conference in total yards allowed per game. And one of just 5 SEC teams holding opponents to an average of fewer than 300 yards a game. Now, the Aggies, they've been very good defensively as well. So this is going to be good defense on good defense. I don't know what the over-under is, but I would lean towards the under because man, they're both very good defensively. A&M will be without one football player, according to a report from the Eagle. Offensive guard Jordan Spazajevic-Moko was arrested, charged with 2 counts of violating a protective order. The guard was arrested around 1 a.m. on Saturday morning, entered a bar where a female patron was also at. She has a protective order against him. So, not a good situation there. The lineman's been indefinitely suspended, did not travel with the team for the Arkansas game. In other news, over at Ole Miss, they bounced back from their loss to Alabama, topping LSU this past week, 55-49. And after the win, Rebel fans, well, they stormed the field. And, of course, due to the SEC competition guidelines and rules, the university will be fined $100,000. It's Ole Miss's first infraction of the year. A second offense will go to $250K. Third offense gets you to $500,000. And that fine will be donated to the SEC Scholarship Fund for post-academic scholarships. Lane Kiffin talking yesterday about facing a dangerous Arkansas team this week, and KJ Jefferson, their starting quarterback. Lane Kiffin saying he's had growth. I think he gets bigger and bigger every year. I mean, this guy is so hard to bring down, so challenging to play against. He always brings his great game against us as well. We're going to have to tackle really well. Got to cover because he makes so many plays out of rhythm by scrambling, and he has really good vision downfield and good accuracy. So this will be a good one between Ole Miss and Arkansas. I know Arkansas's record's not great, but they lost to Texas A&M this past week. Offense did not look very good, but look, newsflash, Ole Miss and LSU's defense didn't look very good this past week. So maybe this is the game KJ Jefferson and company get back on track. Meanwhile, over at LSU, after losing to Ole Miss, Brian Kelly making a change on his staff. He's going to add defensive line specialist Pete Jenkins to his staff. Kelly said Jenkins will be consulting and assisting the defensive line room alongside John Jancic. He said, hoping that'll get his D-line in a better place. He said, we got to maximize the potential of our defensive line. We're in conversations about, are we doing that? But he said he still has confidence in Matt House. He said there's one leader in our defense, and I have the utmost confidence he will be able to do so effectively. He said the blame from the losses past weekend does not lie at one person's foot. It's a collective situation where we got to coach better and play better. LSU gave up over 700 yards to Ole Miss. And the Rebels went over 300 yards passing and 300 yards rushing in that game. So LSU traveling to face Missouri this week. Going to be very tough for them. But, yeah, bringing in Pete Jenkins, guy who worked under Nick Saban for years, veteran defensive line coach, it's got to help. Because, look, LSU didn't sack Jackson Dart once over the weekend. And we talked about all those guys. They have Harold Perkins and Makai Wingo and Mason Smith. I mean, these are all guys who are on, like, those, All-American preseason watch lists. And I couldn't get to Ole Miss once this past weekend. Crazy. So they will see. We'll see if that is able to make a difference with bringing Pete Jenkins aboard. All right, thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we got more tidbits to hit on going around the conference, including Georgia, Kentucky, and a whole lot more. That's coming your way in just a sec. First, I want to remind you guys this episode is presented to you by our friends over at the Game Time app. Look, you should not have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way for you to buy tickets for all the sporting events and other events that you want to get to. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what your seat's going to look like when you get there. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. You can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Again, take all the guesswork out, buy tickets with Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC. Want to remind you guys, if you didn't check it out or you haven't checked it out yet, every Friday we're getting you set for the college slate of the weekend with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Every Friday on our channel and the other Locked On College YouTube channels, 11 a.m. to 1 Eastern. That's 10 a.m. to noon Central. Locked On College Football Kickoff Live, previewing all the action heading into the weekend. Go check that out. All right, we got to dive back into it. We got more tidbits we got to get to going on around the conference. So let's jump back into it as we continue to preview storylines going on around the conference. Over at Arkansas, Sam Pittman giving a positive update on John Morgan after a scary injury on Saturday night. He had to go to the hospital, collapsing with a neck injury. According to Sam Pittman, injury doesn't appear to be too serious. Said Morgan is in great spirits, even might have a chance to play on Saturday against Ole Miss. Been a big part of that defense Morgan has. 5 tackles, 2 sacks on the season. Pittman also updated the status of cornerback Dwight McLaughlin. He suffered a concussion on Saturday. Pittman saying he's unsure whether or not he'll be ready to go this week. He's got 2 picks and a forced fumble on the season. And after a dismal performance against the run on Saturday, Sam Pittman said might be looking to change things up offensively, or rather not against the run, with the run game. Obviously, even getting Rocket Sanders back, what do you have, like 30 yards? Wasn't able to do much. Team as a team had just 42 rushing yards, and KJ Jefferson was sacked 7 times. Sam Pittman said, look, we're going to look at some different scenarios up front on our offensive line. We may shake it up a little bit. So look, what you're doing ain't getting the job done, so it makes a lot of sense. Might make some changes there. Meanwhile, offensive coordinator Dan Enos taking a lot of heat from the fan base, and he's getting some emails from Arkansas students filling up his inbox, and Dan Enos apparently is responding to them. According to a report, it said that one student wrote, I just want y'all to know I'm available to call 4th downs for y'all if y'all need it, and y'all don't have to pay me millions. What a disgrace. According to the report, Dan Enos responded back, what would you call? The student reportedly wrote back, a quarterback sneak. This isn't hard, Dan. Again, we don't know if that's really the OC responding to the email, but it was posted online, and, wouldn't surprise you, but Enos taking a lot of heat there. Razorbacks off to a 2-3 start, 0-2 in SEC play, and you got to play Ole Miss this week in Oxford. Eek. Other news over at South Carolina, Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks falling 41-20 in Knoxville this past weekend. They dropped to 2-3 on the season. And South Carolina gave up a ton of rush yards to Tennessee. Yesterday, Shane Beamer talking about his team and said, look, the key for us is we got to get better as a football team. I told the team today, no one expected us to be 2-3. I think we're better than a 2-3 team, and we got to get a whole lot better. South Carolina will hit their bye week as they prepare to host Florida coming up on October 14th. Shane Beamer said the off week is a great opportunity for us. It's a work week. We have to get ready. We have to get healthy. We have to develop our young guys. We know we're dealing with some injury issues. We got to overcome those. We got to do a better job coaching and put our guys in position to make plays and be successful. I keep saying it. Look, South Carolina's schedule is brutal, and at 2-3, can they get to 6 wins? Can you find me 4 more wins on the schedule? Not saying it's impossible, but it's a tough schedule. And has people in the comments, DMs saying, oh, you really think South Carolina can't finish above 500? No, the way they've played so far, I don't think so. Tough schedule. Some very losable games coming up. Not to say they can't turn it around. I think they can. Spencer Rattler overall has had a really nice season. Seemed to finally have found a little bit of a run game with Anderson, so we will we'll see. But South Carolina, man, urgency coming out of that bye week next week. Over Kentucky, Mark Stoops knows his team's got a big challenge going out to Georgia this weekend. Stoops saying yesterday, you'd have to be a moron not to appreciate what Georgia does. It's very impressive. They recruit very well. They do everything very well. But Stoops said, what a great opportunity. So you got to give credit to Coach Kirby Smart, his staff, his players for what they've done, and that consistency that they've had winning back-to-back championships, trying to go for a 3rd Said it's a uniquely talented football team across the board. Now, coming off their win over Florida, Kentucky's O-line, they played fantastic. Mark Stoops said, look, they took pride in straining. I just think their overall commitment and attitude the past several weeks paid off in that game as they did a tremendous job run blocking for Ray Davis, rushing for almost 300 yards. Incredible. 33-14 win over Florida at Kroger Field for Kentucky. Now, Mark Stoops asked for a little scouting report on Georgia, asked about their big tight end, Brock Bowers. Stoops said, quote, he's an absolute freak in the most complimentary way. Stoops said Brock Bowers is one of Georgia's big-time playmakers, called them an incredible player, said he's selfless, just a complete player, plays well without the football, plays well with the football. Yeah, it's fun to watch. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch some film of just Brock Bowers blocking. Almost like Hines Ward. He takes as much pride in his blocking as he does in catching the football. And much better at it this year. I was told, last year maybe not the best blocker, but has improved in that realm. Stoops said he's a team guy. He said you can tell it that he's a great guy to work around, steps up when they need him, very unique player. Stoops noted he was part of the Arizona coaching staff back in 04 to 09 when Arizona tight end Rob Gronkowski was on the team. And despite that uniqueness Stoops saw with Gronk, he said that Bowers is someone who he hasn't seen before. He said, I see a good player that's getting better more and more every game. So back-to-back 100-yard receiving games for Brock Bowers. We'll see if he can add on to it. Do it again this week against Kentucky. Now, on the flip side over at Georgia, it's funny hearing both coaches gush over each other's team. Ray Davis coming off that big game against Florida. Kirby Smart talking with the media on Monday. He said, Ray Davis, an exceptional back, as good as any back I've seen in a long time. This guy's smooth, explosive. He pass protects real well. He protects the ball. He's aggressive in the way he runs. Reminds me of DeAndre Swift, just a little bit bigger. He has a lot of the same cuts, a one-cut runner, do a tremendous job blocking for him, so it's not all him. Kirby went on to note that Kentucky always seems to have a good quality running back, whether it was Chris Rodriguez or Benny Snell. He said he wasn't aware that Georgia tried to lure Davis in the transfer portal from Vanderbilt this offseason, and he said he didn't talk with Ray Davis. Smart said Georgia felt good about the running back situation. He said, you're always looking for a better player. We weren't actively pursuing anyone. Most of these kids, when they go in the portal, they probably have an idea where they're going already. Now, a few more thoughts on the Georgia Bulldogs. Paul Feinbaum talking about Georgia this week. He made his weekly appearance with Greg McElroy and Cole Kublik in the morning over there in Birmingham. And here's what he said about Georgia. He said there is a talent drop-off. I think there's been a couple of key injuries, but that game Saturday at Auburn should not have come down to one drive where if Carson Beck makes a costly error, it could have actually lost the game. Feinbaum said he thinks the close win against Auburn was a foreshadowing of how Georgia might have to win some other games this season. He said that just should not be in the cards. Georgia has too much talent, but they don't have the talent as fully blossomed or bloomed as they have in the past. It's going to be a real serious challenge for Kirby Smart. He did say they have shown everybody how average they are. So take that for what you will. I think, look, to try to keep going undefeated or going for a three-peat after undefeated season last year, it's hard. I mean, you're not going to have – it's different players and got to win different ways. But what's Georgia done so far? They just keep winning. Now, look, one of these games sneak up on them and lose, maybe. Might happen, but you can't fault them when they are undefeated currently. Now, Tim Brando, he's got a lot of thoughts on the Georgia Bulldogs. First and foremost, he said this week he thinks the Bulldogs have no business being number one after going down to the wire with Auburn. AP poll voters disagree. They have Georgia still at number one. But he said that speaking of Kentucky, he believes Kentucky is the second best team in the SEC East behind Georgia. And if Kentucky could compete with Georgia, could show that Georgia still has a really tough season ahead of them. Tim Brando said that it's a few teams that just are not looking very good right now. The defenses at Ole Miss and LSU not looking very good. He mentioned the SEC West is looking wide open and thinks a two-loss team could take the title. Tim Brando holding strong in his thought that Texas is still the best team in the country. Said that they showed their worth in a dominant win over Kansas. Of course, they get Oklahoma this week. So we'll see what they do. But interesting take. I mean, look, Georgia started as the preseason one. If they just keep winning, I don't care how ugly it is. Like, you knock them out of the number one spot, even in a win. I guess there's an argument to be made there, but I still think Georgia's the best team. They just haven't played up to their capability fully yet. All right, and other tidbit news over at Auburn, Hugh Freeze and company. And it was a tough one there for Auburn and Georgia. They thought they had a chance, and they did late in that game. But Hugh Freeze talking with the Monday Morning Quarterback Club in Birmingham this week and talking about realignment and the future of the conference. And Freeze said, quote, obviously the conference realignment has happened within our conference, and I'm pretty confident the SEC is pretty solid on where we are. And I think they're going to enjoy the new rivalries when we get to see Texas and Oklahoma among the great rivalries that we already have. But he went on to say, I'll miss playing Georgia every year. I just got to experience it for the first time, and I loved every minute of it. Other than the outcome, I love competing against these types of teams. Now, Auburn and Georgia are scheduled to play in 2024. The SEC has not set schedules yet for 2025 and beyond. Again, a lot of people believe we're going to go to a 9-conference schedule, and we'll see what happens there. But, of course, the Deep South's oldest rivalry dating back to 1892, 128 meetings. Georgia improved to 64, 56, and 8 with their 27-20 win over Auburn on Saturday. But, you know, maybe Hugh Freeze breaking old news there that the Auburn-Georgia rivalry is going to go away over the next couple of years. Now, according on his team, specifically football related with Auburn, Hugh Freeze talking about his team being just 2 for 12 on third downs. He said, look, we've got to be better on third downs. We got to have a better third down plan. Some of the time you give credit to the defense. They won. They're national champions 2 years in a row, and they beat you one-on-one. But I think our plan could have been better. I'm always the hardest critic on myself and the staff. I think we could have done more things. I think we have better options on those critical third downs. We got to make sure the ball is touching our best players' hands. I still think Auburn's got a quarterback issue. Peyton Thorne, I don't know if he is the answer. Me personally, I'd give more of a look to Robbie Ashford each week moving forward, but they want to keep sticking with Thorne. We'll see. By the way, I talked to Houston Rockets forward Jabari Smith. Even he stressed to me yesterday. Not looking good with Peyton Thorne. I don't know what's going on there. So just passing that along. Former Auburn alum. Even he's frustrated with the play of Peyton Thorne. All right, a couple other tidbits over at Mississippi State. Zach Arnett announced a season-ending injury for one of his players. Defensive lineman Trevion Williams out for the season following surgery. Arnett said Mississippi State continues to be banged up defensively. So when he's available, he's one of the best on the field. Unfortunately, he's not available. He also noted from a defensive perspective, the best 11 players on the defensive side of the ball is also relevant to what personnel that offense has on the field. So when you have an opponent that's bringing bigger personnel, like Alabama, but you're out several D linemen, you can't match up with them, becomes more difficult. You always want to match up bodies for bodies. Mississippi State gets a little bit of a break this week getting ready for Western Michigan. Over Florida, Billy Napier understands his plan to continue to call plays of Florida will be called into question. That was the case after this woeful offensive performance against Kentucky. On Monday, Billy Napier saying one of the things that's challenging as a leader when you have a core responsibility if things in that area can be done better, you have to be able to tell yourself the truth. I'm a lot more critical of myself than anybody on the outside is. There's no sugarcoating anything. Graham Mertz was 25 of 30 for 244 yards, was sacked 3 times and threw a pick. But Florida had no run game this past week to speak of, and Florida lost their 3rd straight game to Kentucky, and they fell out of the AP top 25. And there you have it. That's the latest tidbits going on around the conference. Coming up next, we will touch on the SEC Players of the Week. That's coming your way in just a sec. But first, this episode presented to you by our friends over at Bird Dogs. Look, we tell you guys all the time, Bird Dogs making you look good. They got that stretch khaki short that is designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg to give you that truly sculpted look. They do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. Bird Dogs fit better because they're than regular shorts because they're made of that stiff, or regular shorts made of that stiff restricting cotton. Bird Dogs are not. They invented that cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it stretches so you get that way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And the best part is, look, the weather is cooling off a little bit, but it's still hot mostly across the SEC country. And so go get your hands on some Bird Dogs. They even got, I mean, it's not just the shorts. They got pants. They got everything you could want up there. Go check them out. They got something for every occasion, whether it's playing golf, going on a date, tailgating, swimming, whatever it is. Bird Dogs has got you covered. Go check them out. birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege. Enter our promo code LockedOnCollege at checkout, and you can get a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege for that free water bottle at checkout. You will not want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Go check them out, birddogs.com. All right, one more segment here on Locked On SEC. And before we get out of here, I do want to run through the SEC Players of the Week after Week 5 is another exciting week. And Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart, he was named a co-offensive player of the week after racking up over 430 yards of offense, 5 touchdowns in their shootout win over LSU. Dart had a couple of clutch touchdowns late in the game. And the co-offensive player of the week was Ray Davis from Kentucky. He was outstanding, like we talked about, almost 300 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns in the win over Florida. Really, really good stuff there. Meanwhile, defensively, Georgia linebacker Small Munden was the defensive player of the week, had 11 tackles, a sack, and 2 tackles for a loss in their win over Auburn. Texas A&M punt returner and wide receiver Nia Smith was the special teams player of the week. He returned 3 punts for 131 yards, including an 82-yard return he took to the house. Kentucky's Jeremy Flax was the O-lineman of the week, rating at 87% and recording 5 knockdowns while not allowing a sack. Tennessee's James Pierce was the D-lineman of the week. He had 3 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, and a quarterback hurry. And then Alabama's Caleb Downs, he was a co-freshman of the week. He was a tackling machine against Mississippi State. Georgia kicker Peyton Woodring was the other co-freshman of the week. He had 2 field goals and 3 PATs on the night. And before we get out of here, the SEC did release their Week 7 time. So we're heading into SEC Week 6. But, of course, looking ahead, they've announced game times and networks for next week. So just to give that to you guys, Week 7. So this will be a week from this Saturday. We will get Georgia at Vandy at noon Eastern on CBS. CBS getting an early game. Arkansas at Alabama will be 11 a.m. Central on ESPN. Texas A&M at Tennessee. That will be the 3:30 Eastern CBS game. So that's the afternoon CBS game. Into the afternoon, Florida at South Carolina will be 3:30 Eastern on the SEC Network. And then your night games. Doing a little flex here. It'll be Missouri at Kentucky and Auburn at LSU. Both will be night games at either a 7 Eastern or 7:30 Eastern kick on either ESPN or the SEC Network. So whichever game has, I guess, more attraction, looks sexier. Like if LSU beats Missouri, then maybe Auburn LSU goes on ESPN. If Missouri beats LSU or Kentucky beats Georgia, Missouri at Kentucky may go on to ESPN. So we'll see what happens there. But obviously both those games already slated for night games will just network to be determined. Will you get the ESPN night crew, which has typically been, at least past couple weeks, Herbie and Chris Fowler on some of those. And, of course, the SEC Network crew with Colt Kublik and Jordan Rogers and Tom Hart. Bunch of goofballs, but we love them. They do an awesome job. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out tomorrow on the show. Joined by our buddy Chris Marler as we preview the SEC Week 6 slate with him. Crazy to think we've already gotten this far into the schedule, but we'll do that tomorrow on the show right here on Locked On SEC. Come on back. Will you make us your first listen every day?